What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's another beautiful Saturday morning with your host, Dan Moneyline Miller, along with my great co-host, Ray Greyfox. Ray, how you doing today? It's another great Saturday.
It is another great Saturday, Dan. We are wrapping up. This season is flying by. Seems like it was August only yesterday. The college football playoff, although every week we get a little closer to identifying the 12 teams that are going to be there, there's still a lot of question marks, right? I mean, I was just watching game day here earlier. You know, that people don't understand that they're now using the term place cards, placeholders. When they show you the teams that would be in today, that just means that's where it stands based on the CFP rankings right now. Obviously, these teams can lose in conference title games. Teams that are on the out looking in might have 2 losses. I don't know. There could be a potential 3-loss team in a conference title game. I'm not sure that's going to happen. But you could have a 2-loss team take on a 0 or 1-loss team and knock them off. And that's going to bump them from out to a Final Four, a top 4 seeding, where they'll get a bye week. So, and again, for those of you that are looking to place any futures bets on the college football national champion, I would highly look at that. I'd look at somebody you think is definitely going to win one of those 4 conferences, whether it's the ACC, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, whatever that may be. If you have a team in the mix there, just get a good grip on whether you think they're going to win their conference, because getting that first round bye and getting into the Final Four, the top 4 initially is going to be very big, obviously, Dan.
Yeah, and we saw last week with Miami, lackluster. We finally saw, I would say, fate catch up to them, as, they were winning every 1-possession games, and finally, trailing at halftime did not do well for them as they lose their first game of the season. Now they are 9th ranked in the CFP poll, as sitting at 9-1. So we are going to Northwestern. Here is the first game on the dock here at 12 Eastern time. Ohio State is a 27.5-point favorite here. Total 43.5. Ray, this is going to be an ugly game. Talk to me about this one.
I mean, you'd think that on the surface, right? But obviously, for those of you following the line this week, I had it yesterday at OSU 28.5. So clearly Northwestern, I don't know from who, from where, from what syndicate that sought out that game to bet on. It is coming down, Northwestern money coming in. If I'm not mistaken, Dan, this game will be played at Wrigley Field today. Northwestern is off the bye. My ratings have this number pretty accurately priced at 28. One of the things you have to look at, we always, the old school handicappers, right? We always used to look at like when Ohio State had Michigan on deck and they had Northwestern the week before. Oh, it's a letdown spot. I mean, when you're playing these conference schedules, it's a grind week in and week out, and you're not going to be able to bring your A+ game, your game you're going to play against Ohio State, or the game you're going to play against a Miami, or whoever's at the top of your conference. You don't carry that energy every single week. So there, it is a real thing. You can't play national championship quality level play for 13 straight weeks. It just doesn't happen. For those of you looking at stuff like that, Ohio State finishes up their season with Indiana and then Michigan following this Northwestern game. So if their minds are elsewhere, this game could be, I don't want to say competitive, because I really don't see any way Northwestern, there's just not much of a home field advantage there. OSU has won 34 of the last 35 in this series. So I don't look for that to change today. They have won their last 10 as well in that stretch, 7-3 against the spread. And again, looking back at those 10, this is a pretty consistent number we're seeing in this game. It's not like they were covering 6, 8, 7-point spreads. They've been covering big numbers against Northwestern pretty consistently over that stretch of 10 games. And again, Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan on deck. So, if their minds are elsewhere, this game could be a little, sloppy, low scoring, could be some weather factor there up in Northwestern. It's that part of the country this time of year. Every day is a holiday when it comes to the weather. Northwestern has not beaten a top 25 team since 2020. So we could, that would be a massive upset, obviously, if they pulled that off today. And, what would scare me about any kind of Northwestern play here, their wins this year, Dan, 3 wins on the season. 4. Miami, Ohio, Eastern Illinois, Maryland, and Purdue. So that's a 1AA team, a MAC team, 2 terrible Big Ten teams, quite frankly. So they just haven't beaten anybody that would make you think that they're going to bring an effort today, even in the excitement of Wrigley Field there on the right by the lake, with the weather could be in play at any given moment, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, all signs kind of point you to Ohio State. And again, personally, I've been looking at this look ahead spot, the definition of a look ahead spot this season. And really, it's kind of gone away with the expanded playoff, with so many teams now having a bigger opportunity to become into the playoff. The look ahead spots are less likely to, I would say, show themselves, because each team is now, every game is really, as it should be, very important. So I'm leaning Ohio State here. So that's just my two halves on that one, right? Going to the next game here, we have Texas on the road to face Arkansas. Texas, a 13.5-point favorite, total 57.5. Buyback on the Razorbacks is plus 410. Talk to me about this one.
Shout outs in the chat. Holden Kushner, one of the founding members of Nuke the House. Great to see Holden here this morning. Mr. Farrar, DB Gnarly, regular attendees. We appreciate you guys being here every week. You guys are what makes the show what it is. On to this one, an old Southwest Conference. If you're as old as me, this is an old Southwest Conference rivalry. Do not be confused, folks. These two teams hate each other. This is a heated rivalry. This should be, quite frankly, I mean, it's an electric game. You look at this number, it's actually low based on my ratings. I mean, Texas could be a bigger favorite here if you just look at the ratings. I saw the number at 12.5 yesterday. Arkansas did get the bye before this big game for them. They will be at home. It's a very, very tough place to play. Arkansas, very tough at home, huge home field advantage there. Last time here, Arkansas, 2021, Arkansas beat Texas 40-21. So that was a 5-7 Texas team that year that Arkansas laid down. First meeting as conference rivals since 1991. So these two heated rivals are back at it in the same conference again. Arkansas 4-2 in the last 6 in this series, 5-1 against the spread in those 6 games. So again, this is a game. This is a season type game for Arkansas. They're obviously not going to win the SEC. This would be their sort of SEC title game to knock off Texas. I promise you, goalposts will come down, fields will be stormed. And honestly, as big as the numbers indicate this upset would be, to me and to the odds makers, we see that. I mean, 12.5-point dog winning isn't, it's not Northwestern beating Ohio State. I can tell you that. And this rivalry again is heated, very heated. 5 of the last 6, Dan, in this rivalry decided by more than 3 touchdowns. So that sort of leans you a little bit back toward Texas. I'm not sure that Texas isn't the best team in the country right now. They're playing fantastic defense. I'm always going to side with the teams that play better defense. Defense travels and defense gets deeper in the postseason. The Texas defense, I think, is the best, quite frankly, in the SEC. And when you look at who they're playing week in, week out, they certainly didn't get a Mizzou or a Mississippi schedule. They got a real deal SEC schedule here in their first year in the conference. I look for this to be a fantastic football game. I think, it's a feather in Texas's cap if they can go in there and win this game, and certainly if they cover it. It's a heated rivalry. And I just look for a super exciting atmosphere in Arkansas today.
Do you see any similarities, Ray, to the game last week with Ole Miss and how, they really pushed the ball down, at will? Do you think that Texas might be able to do that again? Just to see that the game script that Ole Miss had, I think that Texas might be able to copy that game script. What's your say on that?
I agree there. And again, as much as I talked about Texas having the best defense in the SEC right now, that situation at quarterback can't be ignored, especially as you get deeper in the season. Offensively, they have all the weapons in place they need. I think this is a team that I didn't look at the national championship odds going in, but I feel like this is the number 1 national champion contender going into this playoffs. My ratings have them at around plus 23. Again, I've talked about that throughout the season. If you were a plus 20 team in a Final Four scenario that we had previous years, you were always in that Final Four scenario. It's just plus 20 teams just generally did not fall out of the top 4. And this Texas team fits that bill better than anybody that's at those numbers now. With some other teams that are close to those numbers. Ohio State's right there, haven't played nearly the level of competition Texas has. And Miami, I think, is the other team there. And they, again, haven't played nearly the level of competition Texas has.
Yeah, and
I absolutely move the ball today on Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Ray. On to the next game here, we have America's team, Colorado. They are home facing Utah. Colorado is a 13.5-point favorite here. Total 43.5. 5 back on Utah is plus 400. Do we think we're going to see some more time? Because I like this team. I think they're going to cover this number, Ray. I'm on them.
So, in respect to that, this is a game that, I actually released Utah early in the week, taking the points here. Colorado's taking the money as the weeks rolled on. I think this game opened, but it might even open at 9.5. I'd have to look at my numbers, but it was, I know the issue. Back is the issue with Utah, right? I mean, we know who they started the season with. Cam Rising, he's out. Their backup is now out. So Isaac Wilson will get the start here today for Utah. This Utah team has not lived up to expectations, quite frankly. A lot of handicappers better than me liked Utah to win the conference in their first year there. They obviously are not going to do that. This Isaac Wilson. So for those of you who don't know him, he's an 18-year-old true freshman. So he is obviously stepping into a very, very bright light today. The ratings on these Colorado games, I mean, everybody's watching. It's must-watch television, right? So he is set to start today at quarterback. There's an interesting note in a preseason book that most people do read. And he actually wasn't even listed on the preseason depth chart in the top 3 for Utah quarterbacks. But the writer took time to put in the notes under the quarterback position. Head coach Willingham loves this quarterback. So I think that's probably not as bad. You look at a Lagway at Florida. This kid can come in and play now. To be dipped right into this deep of water. My bet on Utah today, Dan, is based strictly on this defensive front. The front 4, the linebacking crew, very, very experienced, very violent up front. That's really the only template model that we've seen to give Colorado hell in games. And that's to just force Sanders to run for his life all game long. And even when you do that, we saw what he did against Baylor. I mean, he ran around all day against Baylor and hurled it into the end zone to keep that game going, that they ended up winning in overtime. So Utah has won 11 of the last 12 here. Again, that's not so shocking considering the state of the program when Deion took over the Buffaloes. 2022 was the last time here. Utah was 29.5-point favorites, Dan. Different world we're living in today. That's a 40.5-point line swing. Utah won that game 63-21. Colorado in the last 7 losses to Utah have averaged losing by 22 points. So this is not a Utah team that's going to take the field today and be in any way, enamored or worried about the great show and the big names on the Colorado roster. This is a game they're used to winning. They're used to winning it big. I'm sure Willingham has played up to that, played that up all week, that theme. He likes his starting quarterback. He obviously has somebody that he wants. Could be a big, big leap for the Utah program. I can tell you that. When you get a true freshman come in and get inserted due to injury, week 11, 12, like we're in, late in the season, and if he were to pull off the win here, Willingham is just going to be glowing after this game because he's got the guy he wants. Rising, obviously, as a senior, he's out. You could potentially look at Utah having the same starting quarterback from today through however many years from now, depending on if he stays a full 4. We don't know with today's environment, but this is a big, big game for Utah. I think it could really direct the path of their future. I think their defense is enough to keep this game close. And we'll see how Isaac Wilson plays. I mean, again, 18-year-old in this environment, on the road, all eyes in the world, college football world on him. It's going to be a very interesting game to watch. I took the number. I think the 11 was generous here. But it is a tall ask with a true frosh at quarterback.
Yeah, I personally, Ray, for me, I just think that with the momentum that Colorado has, it's just going to be hard for them to stop. And I mean, obviously, it's kind of scary to have a head coach saying, I really like the third string quarterback. You don't really get into that a lot of times. But I also wanted to shift a little quickly to all the haters who said Travis Hunter is not going to win the Heisman. He's now minus 110, Ray. He's the odds.
He's not 18-1 anymore, Dan.
Not 18-1 anymore, ladies and gentlemen. So all those people who said, he's not going to win, and he's minus money, ladies and gentlemen. So let's just wrap that around your head.
Orange down.
The closest quarterback is the second favorite. He's Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon quarterback, at plus 360. So a big difference there. So again, if Colorado continues to win and Travis Hunter continues to play well, it's really going to be hard for me not to say. I mean, he's minus 110, right? So I mean, I'm just begging for that 18-1 to come in. So that's just my 2 cents. I really think they're on a great, trajectory, and now they're 17th ranked in the country. That who prior to the season, Ray, was going to tell you that Colorado was going to be ranked at this point? I would say maybe a handful of people.
Nobody. I think they were expected to win 5 or 6 games, and I think that would have actually been decent for them to win 5 or 6 games going in. Looking at it in August.
Going back to your point with the offensive defensive lines, their offensive line has really stepped up this year. I mean, they fixed it in the transfer portal, but again, it really comes down to that front 5 and the back 5. So again, Ray, I'm Godspeed to you. I hope Utah comes in, but just a lean for me, no bet, because you're on Utah, so I'm just leaning Colorado here. So going on the next game we have is in Clemson on the road to face Pittsburgh. Clemson is a 12-point favorite here, total 50. Buyback on Pittsburgh is plus 340. This Pittsburgh team, started off hot, Ray, but now in recent weeks has kind of shown a little rust. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, I think this line, Dan, to your point, is shaped by Pittsburgh's recent performances. This is a good team. It's a good football team. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Narduzzi. I think he's a really good football coach. I actually have a lot of respect for both coaches. I think I've covered enough. Dabo's, Frank Sinatra, I'll do it my way. My ratings have this number a bit high. For me, it's, Pitt at home, Acrisure Stadium. It's unfortunately for Pitt, it should be a bigger home field advantage than it is. And I think it is a recruiting tool for Narduzzi, right? I mean, you saw the Steelers draft pick it out of Pitt. They're almost sharing locker rooms in terms of the proximity of the 2 locker rooms for the 2 teams. So, I mean, to me, this Pitt team is a tough team to you don't want to overlook this Pitt team with Narduzzi at the helm. Clemson has won last 9 road finales. This will be their last game on the road this year. They're 5-3-1 in those last 9 games against the spread. Last time here, 2021, believe it or not, Pitt was the 3.5-point favorite in that game. Again, another big disparity game where 15.5-point line swing from the last time they played here. Pitt won that game 27-17. If I'm not mistaken, that was the year Pitt won the ACC championship. So, and that would have been with Kenny Pickett at quarterback as well. Pitt 8-0, 5-3 against the spread on Senior Day. It will be Senior Day today in Acrisure Stadium. And Pitt does lead the series all time 3-2. So not a ton of history here going way back. Certainly wouldn't call it a traditional rivalry. Teams were in different conferences until recently, fairly recently. To me, this is, this Clemson team, I mean, they've been tough to read. They do have the ability to score a lot of points. They have an excellent offensive coordinator. And I think the head coach after the Georgia loss gave Garrett Riley the reins a little more to cut this offense loose. So Clemson is dangerous, but if I had to lean in this game, I'd have to lean with Pittsburgh at home based on the ratings. We'll see. This game may cause Pitt's rating to drop enough where the line post game is more justified to where Pitt is at currently today in their recent form.
Yeah, all good points there, Ray. I need to see more out of Pittsburgh to back them. So again, this is probably a wait and see for me. Going to the next game, we have a fan pick here, so Hawaii on the road to face Utah State here. Hawaii is a 2.5-point favorite, total 62. Buyback on Utah State plus 120. What do you like here, Ray?
Marquise the Hitman Jones, a regular viewer of the program, requested this one. There's no way I could deny him that request. He's a loyal listener, loyal follower. I had Hawaii 2.5 on the overnight last night, and the ratings more than would actually agree that line's a little bit soft. Hawaii 2-1 in the last 3 with 2 point in their last 3 games. Hawaii is starting to come to form. They're 2-1 straight up with a 2-point loss to UNLV mixed in there. So you're starting to stack decent performances for this Hawaii team under Timmy Chang. For those of you that were degenerates back, not quite 2 decades ago, Chang was a record-setting quarterback at Hawaii. Absolutely torched it. Was a Heisman finalist there. Put up epic numbers. And then when he took over here, it's like, where's the offense? Like, where's the meat type of thing? You expect this guy, he came up under great coaches. Like I think June Jones might have been his coach at that time. They were electric on offense. If they lost a game, it was because they lost 60-53 when he played there. The offense still hasn't come together like some thought it would. Hawaii has lost 7 straight versus Utah State. This is a Utah State program. For those that follow college football closely, it's been pretty strong the last few years. And in that 7 straight losses, Hawaii is 1-6 against this Utah State team. Total bettors, 6 of the last 7 here have gone over the total, averaging 63 points per game. Last meeting was 2022 at Hawaii. Utah State was 10.5-point favorites. They did win 41-34, but that was a backdoor cover for the Rainbow Warriors in that game. Forced to give a pick here for Marquise Hitman Jones. I'm gonna go the weather route here today, Dan. Hawaii doesn't do well traditionally traveling to the mainland, and coming from obviously the one of the most finest weather spots in the United States. They're going to be heading into Utah today. Low 30s game time temp. There's rain scheduled to come in just before the start. I think it's going to stop before the kick of this game. But again, 30-degree temperatures have to be a massive shock. What do you do if you're Timmy Chang? I mean, you can prep if you're an East Coast team playing a cold weather team. You just practice outside, right? It's cold. If you're going to Green Bay or you're going to Chicago, the weather in Philadelphia and Chicago not that different. I mean, yeah, it's colder in Chicago, but you still have the option to kind of cold up in the week of practice. I mean, I don't know what does Hawaii do. Do they rent a massive building and put a freezer in it and make it 30 degrees? I don't know. I mean, I don't
say they stand in a freezer for 10 minutes and then go run outside. I don't know.
I don't know what you do to prep for that. So, I told Dan pre-show this Utah State team let me down. I took them over their season win total. That's closed out as a loser. And it pains me to back them here. The Rainbow Warriors have been coming into better form of late. But I'm going to side with Utah State strictly on a weather factor. I just think when you come from that kind of climate, it's going to be hard to catch balls. It's going to be hard. Just the execution from Hawaii is going to be very, very tough here. Again, these are 2 negative rated teams in my ratings. With Hawaii having the ratings edge, the number really should be a little higher if traditionally they didn't struggle so much coming stateside, and combine that with the cold, you get a low number here. Utah State, I'm going to take Utah State plus the short number here, Dan.
Yeah, I agree. I think, weather plays such a big factor, and especially when you're not used to it, Ray. Like you said, as Hawaii is just not used to cold weathers, and I mean, they're used to rain, right? That's about it. But the snow, not so much. And especially when they're seeing their own breath, that might, psychologically mess them up a little bit. But I just also wanted to thank all the listeners, Uncle Dave, my mom and pops, all you listeners out there. Please like and subscribe in the comment section below. Use code NUKENovember for a 1-week free trial at nukethehouse.com, and you can get all of Ray's picks and all the other picks. So make sure you use that code NUKENovember, and you can get Ray's picks early in the week instead of just on this show on Saturday. Going to the next game, Ray, we have Virginia on the road to face Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 22-point favorite here. Total 51. Buyback on Virginia is 11-1. Anything here?
No action for me here on the Virginia front. Want to give a shout out. There's an HBCU big game going on today. Virginia Union will be playing their conference title game against Virginia State here in the Commonwealth. The kicker for me here, the best quarterback that I ever snapped to in my career through college, was a man by the name of Carl Donnie Wright. He went to Virginia Union out of high school. He broke every passing record there. In a game against Grambling that I went and saw, he threw 4 or 5 interceptions in the first half. People were going nuts. He came out and threw for almost 500 yards in the second half of that game, bringing them back to beat Grambling in a massive football game. I think it was at the Meadowlands, if I remember correctly. But big shout out to Carl Donnie Wright. One of the greats to ever play the game. To be honest, he was Michael Vick before Michael Vick. He ran, he passed, he had 90-yard rushing touchdowns. He could throw the ball 70 yards through the air. Very similar to Vick, a great athlete. I know he's probably at the game today, excited. One of those weird scenarios where they played last week and now they're playing this week again in their conference title. So a big familiarity, in-state HBCU game, pulling for Virginia Union. And that one, as we discussed, this UVA Notre Dame game. Notre Dame, the number, again, you look at my ratings, it's plus 16 for Notre Dame. It's a -3 for Virginia. You bake in the home field, and where do you sit at? You sit at 21.5, which is right where the number was yesterday. UVA is 0-4 all time versus the Irish. Last time here, 2019, UVA was 10.5-point dogs. They lost 35-20. UVA 19-8 against the spread versus ranked foes. 4-2 against the spread versus ranked foes under current head coach Elliott. So this Virginia team, this turned out to be I don't think anybody would have predicted this hire would have turned out this well this soon for Virginia.
They're very scrappy.
They are a very scrappy team. I won once actually against them with Maryland earlier in the year. But if those two teams played today, I can promise you I'd be on Virginia. It's a different place, different time sort of scenario. When Bronco Mendenhall did the quick Tony Bennett type retirement, that Tony Bennett resigned as the UVA hoops coach this year, just a week before the start of the season, may have allowed him to pick his successor, so to speak, because they didn't have a job search there really. Elliott, nobody knew, when Elliott came in here, again, sort of an unknown commodity, but he's doing the job. They're a plucky bunch, as Dan put it. Irish 3-1 against the spread all time versus the Cavs. Again, Virginia 0-4 all time versus the Irish. This could be a game again. Notre Dame, they're one of the few that. So going into the season, I guess only out of all the Power Fours knew if you win your conference, you're going to get the bye and you're going to be in the top four, already propelled past the first round of the playoff. Notre Dame knew that the best they could do. Notre Dame could have run the slate this year, and the best they could have been was a 5 seed. They're a major independent. They don't have a conference affiliation. Why they haven't joined the ACC, nobody knows. I don't know why they haven't joined the conference. I guess, it does always provide them as a major independent an easier route to the playoffs, although they haven't really utilized that or taken advantage of that in recent years very much. This Notre Dame team plays outstanding defense, so this will be a very, very tough test. If you see UVA putting points on the board in this game, I mean, that's a star in your notebook to look at this UVA team next year. I think they're really rounding into form nicely under Coach Elliott. This number's high, but again, this could be, we'll just have to see, can this Virginia offense, can they pull enough out of the bag to score points against Notre Dame? Because this is the best defense that they've faced, I would imagine, all year. No play for me here. Just a sentimental lean with UVA and the way they've been playing, the way they've been hanging around in games, this big of a number. Again, can they score? That's what you have to ask yourself. So you may look into team totals here before you do anything with the game.
Right. I think that's such an excellent point that you bring up. I think you, again, as a bettor, you start this game, right? You don't have to bet it. And you start this game. If Virginia, like you said, score some points, you star them and you start betting them on next year because, this is a learning process, ladies and gentlemen. It's not, you don't have to make a bet every single game and feel good about it, right? You can evaluate teams and look, it's very good, I think, that you said to star them for next year because teams are now in the point of the season where they're not looking to, I would say, go all out this year, Ray. They're realizing that, things haven't worked out completely as the way we wanted to. So now we're just going to try to build for next year. And a lot of teams do that. A lot of teams really look forward to what can they do next year and how can they improve. And again, Ray, this is a great game. I think for learning points for bettors to just star it. You don't have to bet it. If you like this Virginia team, and if they put up points, you're on them in the coming weeks and especially next year. So Ray, just a good point there. I just wanted to highlight that. Going on to the next game here, a team that I kind of liked at the beginning of the season is now not so hot, not so, not covering as many games as I would like them to for my pocket. Boston College on the road to face SMU. SMU is a 18.5-point favorite. They're also ranked 14th right now in the country, SMU is. Total 53.5. Buyback on Boston College is plus 650. Talk to me about this one, Ray.
This is another one we're seeing. I mean, the games we're covering, just look at the stretch in these three games that we're covering in a row here. 21.5, 18.5, 20.5, big numbers, all conference games. Again, but new opponents, right? BC and SMU. SMU here is off the bye for those of you that track such things. You factor in the ratings here. This line is fair. BC, excellent, very well coached team. Bill O'Brien had taken an OC job. And literally, I think a week after he took that OC job, he got the call see if he wanted to be, if he was interested in the BC head coaching job. That is his hometown. That was an easy yes. It was a soft, easy yes for him. He jumped on that opportunity. Like you said, mixed results this year so far for BC. Kind of won, lost maybe some games that they shouldn't have lost. Haven't really shown you a bunch in games that they should win, if there's a ton of those. Last time here actually was 19-86. That was just before, I think the year before SMU got the death penalty. So that's how long ago this rivalry has been going on. BC did upset this. So recent history, BC did upset SMU in last year's Fenway Bowl. For those of you that like to go bowling, they beat them 23-12, and they were 12.5 points in that game. So the SMU team that was on the rise again. Some of the things that you look at, to Dan's point, I mean, this is that's a thick notebook that I have that has every college football team, every game they play, my preseason notes on them, the rating of all the opponents that they played, the lines in the games, however you want to do it. I get it. This is old school. I know that you young kids are like, what the fuck is that? It's a binder. It's called a 3-ring binder, kids. Yeah, we didn't have laptops. We had 3-ring binders and the legendary spiral notebook. So, again, I'm old school. I get it. I'm half dead. But I keep all this stuff for a reason, Dan. And that's to your point is, to keep an eye on things, to track teams, to make notes that I'm going to utilize next season. I'm old. I'm not going to remember that UVA game unless I write down a note on it and I go back and look at it and go, oh, remember they? Yeah, okay. Now we got to be on this team. Might even look at them in a regular season win total scenario next year. SMU 4-0. 3-1 recently off the bye. So SMU is off the bye today. They performed very well recently off that bye. BC 1,700 plus mile journey against this ACC foe. So, for those of you that it's going to take some time for everybody to get used to Cal. These teams that are playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference that are actually located on the Pacific Coast, or in SMU's case in Texas. So again, it's college football is changing. It's an ever-changing model. The one thing I'm not the old goat that sits here and complains and says, the way the game was played in my day, or, it's kind of a sad thing to really do that, right? I mean, there's some things I don't like. Sure. There's, targeting. I'm not the biggest fan of targeting and the way that's judiciated. There's some other things that I could probably go on about. NIL shouldn't be brown bag. It should be name, image, and likeness. It shouldn't be how much money can we pay to get this 18-year-old to come here when we're not even sure if we know if he's going to do anything, because not all recruits hit home, right? We don't look at the NFL draft, folks. Those guys get paid a crap ton of money to pick guys to draft that you have under contract for 4 years, an optional fifth in a first-round case, and they get it wrong. So at the college level, the percentages are so much lower that these 18-year-olds saying, I need $50,000 to come visit your school. I can tell you what my answer to that would be. There's things I don't agree with, but this realignment, 12-team playoff, I think both of them are fine with me. I do miss in-state close geographical rivals, this obviously not being one. Bill O'Brien can be tough in this dog spot. SMU is a stronger team. I got them at around a +8.5, BC around a -8. You cook those two together with a home field and you get 18.5. So, I tell people I lay out the games, I write my ratings, I write my line for the game. When the odds maker and me agree, it's literally an X for me. It's that simple. I'm not going to find a way to find something wrong with a number I agree with. That doesn't make sense to me. So I find the ones where there's disparity, and then I find out, is what they're looking at more important or what I'm looking at more important? And that's what dictates what I bet. So this was a pass for me, Dan, at the 18.5 number, but don't sleep on Bill O'Brien in this big underdog role. He's been known to do damage in that spot in the past.
Yeah, I'm for my heartbreak in my pockets, I'm laying off this game just because, from the heartbreaks earlier on in the season. So that's just a pass for me. I want to thank all the viewers right now. We have over 100 viewers right now watching the show live. So thank you for watching and counting, right? It's going up. So we really appreciate every single one of you here.
Yes,
it really means a lot. And we're just going to give you some great insight on some of these games. And make sure you use code Nuke November for a 1-week free trial at nukethehouse.com. It'll serve you well. You get my great co-host picks right there. This guy. So, all right, going on the next game, Ray. We have Louisville on the road to face Stanford. This Louisville team they're pretty good. They didn't cover last weekend against Clemson, but this week they're a big favorite here. 21-point spread here. Buyback on the Cardinals is plus 850. Total 57.5. I don't know, Ray. I think Louisville steamrolls them here.
Stanford stinks, man. Let's just be honest. Stanford stinks. The best thing about Stanford has and always will be their mascot. We covered that in a previous show. One of the only mascots to ever get ejected. It was from a college basketball game. The Stanford Tree. So, but they stink. They have no home field advantage, quite frankly. This Louisville team is, playing a little below where I expected them to be rated. But again, I have them at a +5. I have Stanford at a -15. That sets out at about 20. There is no home field for Stanford. There's absolutely no home field advantage for Stanford in this game. I'm sorry, there's not. So that's why the number sits at 20.5, where I had it. So again, this Louisville team is much better. If they jump on Stanford early and often, this game will be over quickly. Louisville does have weapons on offense that could take this game out of reach early. Both teams here are off a bye. A lot of times that means a slow start to a game. Defensive coordinators have had 2 weeks to look at every nuance and tendency of an offense they're going to play. And they can certainly dial up defenses a little bit better when they have that much time to prepare. But again, preparation is probably extra prep is going to favor, both teams have it, is going to favor the favorite because they're better athletically. They have better players. They have better schemes. They have better coaches. That's the reason they're better. Louisville's first trip ever to Palo Alto for you, welcoming in the new alignments. Louisville's last true road game in California, Dan, 1990. Stanford. This speaks to the great football tradition of Stanford and their home field advantage. Stanford, 0-5 straight up and against the spread on senior day. Hey, thanks for playing 4 or 5 years here at Stanford. We're going to get blown out in front of your parents, your family, your friends. We're going to get blown out on the day we honor you. So that speaks to Stanford's football tradition, quite frankly. I hate to say that because there was a time when they actually were a good football team and they had a very good football coach. That is no longer the case. Stanford 4-11 against the spread as a home dog since 2021 entering this year. I didn't look at each and every game this year, but I can promise you they haven't been covering games like wildfire. So that 4-11 is probably actually a little bit worse after this stretch of the season. It's a no play for me. It's a lean to Louisville if it's anything. I just don't see where Stanford, again, they certainly don't seem to get hyped up to send their seniors out on senior day. They don't have a home field advantage. Louisville's got the athletes. Will they be motivated is the real question, I think. It's a no play for me as it sits right on my number. But if I were to go in a direction here, Dan, it would be Louisville.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't believe Ray, the last time Stanford University was somewhat relevant in the college football atmosphere was when Andrew Luck was their quarterback in 2008 to 2011. That is probably the one and only time they'll really be relevant unless someone else like to that caliber comes to join their program. So just to your point, Ray, Andrew Luck.
I think it was Brian Shaw. Brian Shaw was the head coach there. It was a fantastic head coach. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Shaw that recruited Luck. And we see how that worked out for both of them. Stanford went on a nice run there of 10-plus win seasons under Brian Shaw, but they have done absolutely nothing since then.
Yeah, so just to that point. Going on the next game here, we have LSU on the road to face the Florida Gators. LSU had a pretty disappointing game last week against Alabama. However, this is a new week, Ray. LSU is a 3-point favorite here on the road to face Florida. Florida buyback on the Gators is plus 130. Total here, 57. Anything here, Ray?
Interesting game. That's sort of life in the SEC, right? I mean, an LSU loss to Alabama certainly isn't a big ding in your resume. This isn't your older brother's Alabama team, so to speak. LSU is a little bit of letdown. I kind of thought LSU would be an outside shot, contender to contend for it all this year, quite frankly, and certainly in the SEC. Haven't quite lived up to expectations there under Coach Kelly. The ratings here are out of line, quite frankly, with this line. But I think this plays into, this number would be drastically different, again, if it was a 7:30 game being played in Baton Rouge. Florida with the home field here, and when we see that, the huge advantage. This is a massive home field, folks. The Swamp is a very, very difficult place for anybody to go into and win. Electric environment, even when they don't have great teams there. The fans are very strong behind the Gators. Coach Kelly teams, LSU Coach Kelly, his teams are 40-24 against the spread off a straight up loss. That qualifies this week. As Dan mentioned, they lost to Bama last week, and 6-1 against the spread at LSU. So Kelly traditionally and at LSU has been very good off a straight up loss. There are, for those of you that think that that's sort of grabbing straws, that's actually a more real stat than you would think. Some coaches, again, have a really good way of turning it. Don't even start, Marquise. Don't even start. And by the way, you weren't even here. If you weren't here for Hawaii, Utah State, you get no more viewer picks. DB Gnarly, somebody give me a viewer pick for next week, because it ain't going to be Marquise Jones. Tell you that.
I had to slide that in there, Marquise. I got you, brother.
I knew you were going to back him. So Coach Kelly, that's a real thing. Coaches off a straight up loss. Tomlin's one of those in the pros. It's just the ability to get a team right, take a team from a very, very low place coming off a loss to a high, strong effort. Coach Kelly does have that ability. 6-1 against the spread in this situation at LSU. Tight series here, folks. LSU with a 34-33-1 series edge. So if Florida pulls off the short upset, this series will be tied all time through 69 games. Florida has lost their last 5 straight up and against the spread versus LSU. So there's a couple signs here pointing to LSU, even with Florida getting that great home field with the Swamp. For you total bettors out there, the over is 6-0 in the series with an average of 74 points per game. Another trend here, the Dogs 6-2 against the spread of late in this series. So nothing here for me, Dan. I feel like the number actually is a little bit low. Ratings favor LSU in this game. Should be an electric environment. We'll see if Coach Kelly can continue his trend of picking his team up after a loss. No action for me here, though, Dan.
And just for people watching Florida, 2 weeks ago they lost their starting quarterback, and now they are on their either second or third string quarterback. So that you have to take that into effect, in my opinion, for Florida. LSU, for my instinct, right? They got not blown out, but they really let that game go last week, and I think this is a bounce back game. You can say that, but truly, that's human nature. Is you get punched in the face, you're going to want to punch someone back in the face, right? So this is LSU's chance to do that, in my opinion. So I'm on the Tigers here in this game, just for all the viewers out there. Going on to the next game we have. Now, Ray, this is on paper. I want to say on paper, this is the closest ranked game, but the point spread will tell you completely otherwise. This is 23 ranked Missouri on the road to face 21 ranked South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, even though they're 2 spots different, South Carolina is a 12-point favorite. It was 12.5. Money's coming in on Missouri as we speak, Ray, but South Carolina is a 12-point favorite here. Total 42.5. Buyback on Missouri is plus 370. Talk to me about this Missouri team, because this number seems a little weird to me.
So this was a game I actually, when I was doing my work on Sunday last week, around noon, I had come to this game and I said, if I get the right number here, I'm going to hammer South Carolina. But that number was not 14. It got up to 14 yesterday. Dan mentioning the buyback. I have to look at where this one opened at, but I can't quite remember how high it was. It was 12.5 on open, so it's actually come back to the open. But I kind of understood where people were betting South Carolina here. I wanted a much lower number, quite frankly, and I thought Missouri at plus 14 was an outstanding bet. I still, if I take any side in this game, I really want to take Mizzou. I think their quarterback may be questionable. Is it Cook? I think his name is. I think he's questionable. He was questionable. Don't know. I think if he goes, you have to like Mizzou. It's their depth at quarterback has sort of led to their demise. The games that Cook came out in, they didn't fare well in. This Missouri team, a massive letdown, right? This was a team that if you looked at their schedule preseason, it was very, very soft. They played 3 absolute cupcakes out of conference, so to speak. They looked to have they didn't play any of the really top tier SEC teams. They didn't get Texas. I think they played Oklahoma, but they didn't get Georgia. They didn't get Bama. And it's just this Missouri team has been a massive letdown. They spent a lot of NIL money at this program. and it's really underperformed. The other hand, South Carolina, Dan, you like them as a dog, certainly a home dog under Coach Beamer. They traditionally don't perform well as double-digit favorites at home. This isn't the type of team that just blows a lot of people out at home. And quite frankly, a 2-touchdown win over Mizzou would be a blowout at home. No bet for me, but I would my lean here is all week has been to Mizzou. I almost jumped on it at 14. I didn't get there in time. Mizzou 5-0 straight up and against the spread in this series since 2019. Touchdown giant favorite. I think quite on the other hand, Mizzou is probably going in this game if they have their starting quarterback at the helm. They're looking to win this game outright. I wouldn't argue even with a Mizzou, a pizza bet on the money line on Mizzou, because, again, the last person that'll be shocked if Mizzou wins this game will be me. South Carolina in a very unfavorable spot for them, laying double digits at home. South Carolina 5-7 straight up and against the spread since Mizzou joined the SEC. So, again, the recent history, all the history in this is favoring Mizzou. Total bettors under is 10-2 in the series with an average of 46 points. So the under here, historically prevailing. No action for me. I wouldn't argue a Mizzou plus the number bet. I would not argue a Mizzou money line bet. The last thing that would shock me is Mizzou winning this game in Columbia.
Wow, Ray. Very, very great analysis there. I like that. I think we circled Mizzou a couple weeks ago to say, like, is this team really for real? Guess what? They won that game, and yes, I think they're for real. So, I think this is too big of a point spread, even on the road to raise point. It did get up to 14.5 earlier in this week, and then buyback obviously on the Tigers. So, interesting game there, Ray. I hope Missouri does something for us for once. So on the next game here, we have the number one team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks, on the road to face Wisconsin Badgers. I don't know, Ray. I think a Badger would mess up a duck if you put him in a ring. But Oregon here is a 14-point favorite here, total 50. Buyback on the Wisconsin Badgers is plus 410. Anything here, Ray?
A Badger would annihilate a duck. I don't even think the feathers would be left on the duck. He would eat the feathers. Badgers are vicious, man. They're vicious. Yeah. Unfortunately, this Wisconsin team is, even though they are named the Badgers, is not quite as vicious as the actual Badger himself. The Ducks, again, their ratings really starting to drop a little bit. You look at that, they're not over 20 anymore. They kind of stayed over 20 in my ratings all year. They've dipped now just under 17 in the ratings. If you look at this game, this number might be a touch high based on ratings. But again, the competition that Oregon has faced this year, it's probably about the same as Wisconsin. Wisconsin's off the bye here, if you like that bias. They are plus near 3.5 in my ratings. So it's not a bad Wisconsin team. I'll get down to the bottom at the end of the defensive look at everything, which will always sort of be a push for me. Very short series history here, 3-3, but Oregon has won the last 3 here, Dan, but only 6 games of history between the two. The last 5 meetings were 1-score games. Note that it's a 2 touchdowns line here. The last 5 meetings were 1-score games. This is probably one of the best Oregon teams that's certainly in discussion for one of the best Oregon teams out of those last 5 meetings. And this is not the best Wisconsin team of those last 5 meetings. Wisconsin 16-0 straight up, 10-6 against the spread after facing Iowa. Had to pull that nugget out. They did face Iowa before the bye week. So whatever it is about Iowa, Wisconsin does not lose the week after they play Iowa, the game after they play Iowa. That does apply here. Even though they're off the bye, their last game was against Iowa. Wisconsin defensively giving up 334.3 yards to Division I foes. They're going to need all of that today. And I think that's where you're going to see if this Wisconsin team can hang in. It's not going to be Wisconsin outscoring Oregon in the shootout. That much I'm very confident of. Wisconsin will not beat them in a shootout. They probably, and again, weather isn't a big thing here because Oregon, they get a lot of rain, freezing rain, crappy weather where they play. So they're not anything they see in Wisconsin is not going to bother Oregon weather-wise. Traditionally, I've seen Wisconsin defenses are about 40 points better than this current one. 40 yards per game better than this current one. but at 334.3, they're not a terrible defense. So they if their defense can keep them in, they will be. Dan will be rooting for this Wisconsin defense today, because if they can hold Dylan Gabriel down, and Colorado's two-way star has a big game, that would the odds would just continue to implode on those that waited to follow that 18-1 number that Dan gave out earlier in the season. I did not bet this game. Again, the ratings say the number's a touch high. It's all about the Wisconsin defense here. So if you think that Wisconsin defense can hold down Dylan Gabriel and the Duck offense, I think you have a very, very good chance of covering that 14 points. That's just a matter of whether you trust that Wisconsin defense in this spot against a really strong offense, Dan.
Well, Ray, you already know who I'm rooting for in this game, so you outlined it pretty well. Going to the next game here, we have this is the game of the week, pretty sure. Tennessee on the road to face Georgia. Georgia is a 9-point favorite here, total 47. Buyback on the Volunteers is plus 260. Now, Ray, Carson Beck, the quarterback for Georgia, has looked absolutely terrible the last couple of games. Now, do you think he rights the wrong in this game here against Tennessee?
I mean, to me, it's one of those things of, are you going to guess that a guy's going to stop doing what he's been doing for how many straight weeks? He's been throwing interceptions like this for, multiple straight weeks.
Multiple.
He has a dozen interceptions.
He has 12 touchdowns and 17 touchdowns to 12 interceptions.
12 interceptions, and all 12 of those have come in his last 6 games.
Yeah.
None of them came in the first 4 or 5. So, I mean, what is it that makes you think that that a Tennessee defense that is giving up 277 yards on the season, you certainly can't say they've played a cupcake schedule. I mean, they've obviously played some tough foes. To me, this was a play. I started this one. The ratings scream it. We saw it last week. It's like the odds makers are living in Georgia, in like the ghost of Christmas Georgia past. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this is not your older brother's Georgia team. It's not your uncle's Georgia team. It's not your grandfather's Georgia team. This Georgia team's struggling this year. Game day is in Georgia today. The loyal folks there in for the morning show, ESPN Game Day for the evening tilt. I don't know that Tennessee should be favored in Athens. I'm not going to go that bold, but to call them a double-digit dog here, I understand that if they would have thought without their starting quarterback they were a double-digit dog, but now I did see that he's cleared. He's 100% cleared to play. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his last name, but his first name's Nico. That is the starting quarterback for Tennessee. He was concussed last week. He practiced every day this week while in the college football protocol, and he has been cleared by neurologists to play the game. Tennessee last won in Georgia, Dan, 2016. You may remember that game. For those of you that are fans of the Hail Mary, the physics student graduate, Josh Dobbs, who went on to a career in the NFL as a backup for the Steelers, among other teams. And I think he grabbed some wins for Minnesota not long ago as a starter, did Josh Dobbs. He threw a Hail Mary in this game. This is a very, very famous rivalry if you're an SEC fan. This is where the hobnail boot came out. Larry Munson, one of the greatest all-time announcers in the history of college football. If you are bored one day, sitting somewhere waiting, go to YouTube and Google Larry Munson best calls. You will absolutely fall out of your seat. The Georgia-Florida call where I broke a metal chair, a full metal chair with a cushion. We just stuck a hobnail boot in their face and kicked them with it. That was in the Tennessee game. And, of course, my son has a beautiful, beautiful full-size painting in his bedroom of Herschel Walker running over one of the hardest hitters in college football and pro football history, and Bill Bates. That was Walker's freshman year. Georgia played in 3 consecutive national titles while Walker was toting the ball for them. And in that one, Munson's call was, he runs over a volunteer at the 9. My God, a freshman. Like back then, freshmen didn't touch the field. So even Munson knew it. He's like, we're going to get this guy for 3 more years. And they did. And they, I think they got him for 2 more years. And then he went to the USFL because the USFL started. So this is a very, very big rivalry for those of you that are SEC fans. Tennessee last won in 2016, Dobbs a Hail Mary. Georgia has held the Vols to season low yards in their last 2 meetings. Georgia has won the last 7, 5-2 against the spread, and they've covered that spread by 8.6 points. So for those of you backing Georgia in the high number here, they've done it before against Tennessee, specifically in their last 7. Georgia, 446 to 266 yard edge in the last 5. So they're outgaining Tennessee by nearly 200 yards in the last 5 contests. Note, this is not the same Tennessee squad as they've done that to. I took the double digits here. I think you may even hit 11 at one point. I think I got 10 or 10 and a half. But 10 would be fine with me with this Tennessee team. This is just this Georgia quarterback has just thrown pick after pick after pick. And then I see him on the sidelines laughing and yucking it up. Like, if I would be so fucking pissed if I was Kirby Smart and I looked over my shoulder and my defense is scrambling for the 12th time in 6 games because this guy's colorblind and he's over there giggling on the sideline. It just doesn't sit well with me. Show me that you're pissed off. Like, I get it, like you want to be confident. You're better than that. But get a little pissed maybe or something. I like Tennessee in the double digits here. Prove it. Prove me wrong. It's a prove me wrong game for the Georgia quarterback.
Yeah, this spread got as high as to 11 early in the week. So Ray, there's your double digits there. It's 10 in some spots, but on DraftKings it is 9. So make sure you do shop around, ladies and gentlemen. And also make sure you use code Nuke November for a 1-week free trial at nukethehouse.com so you can get expert picks like Holden Kushner and Ray Greyfox, like this guy. So make sure you use code Nuke November for your 1-week free trial. Heading on to one of the last couple of games here, Ray, we have is one of my preseason darlings, I would say, is the Kansas Jayhawks on the road to face BYU. Kansas, I jumped off the ship like 1 week too early, right? I'm just going to say that. And, they really showed me in recent weeks that they do have some fight left in them. So BYU is a 2.5-point favorite here. Buyback on the Jayhawks is just plus 110. Total 56.5 here, Ray. Can Jalen Daniels win another one for me? Come on.
I mean, I know your love affair with him, and I won't say it's misplaced. It was actually well placed going into the season. You were certainly not in the minority backing this Kansas Jayhawk team or their quarterback. This number, again, is has to be biased on Kansas's performance last week. By my ratings, BYU should be a bigger favorite at home. BYU has lost their prior 2 meetings straight up against Kansas. This is the first trip to Provo for the Jayhawks under head coach Leopold. Kansas. This is not good, folks. 6-11 against the spread on the road, 4-7 on the road as Big 12 dogs. So not a great position historically or under this current head coach. Again, I encourage you, when you look at historical stuff, if head coaches both changed for 2 teams last year, you got to throw that stuff out the window. Those guys aren't there anymore. But when one head coach is continuing to do the same thing, that becomes a trend. Kansas defense here, this is where I think this game could be decided. Kansas defense is yielding 405.5 yards this year. Your quarterback has nothing to do with that, Dan. BYU's defense, on the other hand, at 335 yards per game. This is a BYU or nothing play for me. I didn't play the game. This BYU team is dangerous. It's a good football team. If Kansas continues to play the way they did last week, this will be a tooth and nail type drag it out street fight. But I'll lean with BYU and their defense. No official play here, but BYU lean for me, Dan.
Yeah, Ray, I'm with you there with the just under the field goal here at home. I think BYU could pull it out, even though as of recent, Kansas has been somewhat a fighting animal. But again, with the trajectory of this BYU team, I'm on your side, right? Last game we have here is San Diego State goes on the road to face UNLV, a team that's in my backyard here. UNLV is a 22-point favorite here. Buyback on San Diego State is 10-1. Total 54.5. Ray, what do you like in this game? Because I like UNLV.
Well, there you go. The Rebs. They're running Rebs. When I lived in Vegas, Dan, you couldn't bet on Nevada sports. I think they've changed that now. I'm glad that you guys are able to. This San Diego State team is not your older brother's team. They've really dropped off. This used to be a really, really strong football team. And this to the point of this game, UNLV against the Aztecs. The under here is 5-2 in the last 7. However, they have averaged 52 points per game. I think I heard you say the total's at 54. And I'm going to get into why, if I leaned anyway, it probably wouldn't be with that trend. Since 2010, San Diego State favored as 11-2 straight up and 6-7 against the spread against UNLV. So again, this San Diego State team. I have them rated at -12. UNLV just above the 0 mark, +3 in my ratings. The spread's absolutely justified. UNLV at home should take it to this team if they're engaged. And the defenses here are bad. UNLV's given up almost 400 yards a game. San Diego State's given up 432 yards a game. The issue here with going over this number, maybe San Diego State scoring. They're just a bad football team, quite frankly. And if I went anyway, I'd lean with you on the UNLV side. And again, the total, neither defense tends to stop anybody. So we see if that under trend can continue. But again, they've averaged 52 points in the unders in previous meetings here, Dan.
Yeah, Ray, all good points there. And I think this UNLV team has just some rejuvenated hope that, that they're just not just a basketball school, I guess, because, in past years, they've been somewhat decent in basketball. But now they're a football program too, Ray. So I think you got to respect that. And there's a reason they're laying 22 points today. So, again, I want to thank every single one of you watching here at Nuke the House, either on Twitter or on YouTube. We'll be back next week, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And we'll continue to give out great insight. And thank you so much for listening. Again, use code NUKENovember for 1 week free trial at nukethehouse.com. That's Ray Greyfox. I'm Dan Moneyline Miller. Until next week, Ray, have a great one, guys. And see you later.